What's up, guys? How's it going? Let's do watch along and play some Street Fighter and shit. I'm eating too, so.
How does this keep on happening? How? You would think after the last fumble that Mortal Kombat had, there was absolutely no chance that they could fumble a legacy collection. And I know this is not directly NRS, but it is just another hit on the Mortal Kombat franchise. And none of us here want to see Mortal Kombat fail. Nobody want to see Mortal Kombat go down the drain. It is a staple within the fighting game genre. We want MK to do well. And you would think to yourself that this, of all things, would be so simple. There's no way. Surely there's no way that you can mess up the Legacy Collection. I mean, all you got to do is put the classics in there. MK1, MK2, MK3, put MK Gold in there. Now we know it's not in there. Fine, licensing issues, copyright issues, whatever issues they had, I don't know, but we ain't getting it. They said there might be an update at some point. I don't believe them, but we will see. So MK Gold's not in there, but outside of MK Gold, I was willing to forgive. I even told many of the game's detractors, do you know what? MK Gold's not there, but MK Trilogy is apparently going to be there, which I believe it is now, and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, whatever. Like, we can deal with that. That's fine. I'll jump into lobbies with you guys. We'll jump in ranked. We'll have a good old time. And I believe that lobbies and ranked were going to be a day one thing for this game, considering Digital Eclipse has done collections before with ranked and lobbies for fighting games, which I will demonstrate in a moment. But silly old me for expecting the bare minimum. Silly old me for asking for the bare minimum and then getting flamed on Twitter by a bunch of smooth brains who are just happy to accept slop. Now, True Underdog already covered this, so I'm not going to go into it. But the art book is abysmal. The people that purchased this book seem very disappointed, and I don't blame them because it's AI slop. They have used AI to upscale the images, but they did a horrendous job doing it. And people have been online demonstrating to them how you can do this. And AI upscaling has existed for a very long time. As I said, True Underdog already covered all of this. If you want to hear about that particular issue, go over and watch his video. It's a very good watch. So the art book is already a fumble. You fumbled that. MK is a slam dunk. You've got iconic characters that are well known. Everybody knows these characters. Everyone knows the story. It's a basic story. It's easy to follow, apart from the fuck up of MK1. Other than that, MK story is pretty simple to follow and it's hard to mess up. And somehow, even with a damn art book, you can't get it right. So we'll forget about the art book. I'm not going to harp on that for too much. Firstly, I want you guys to watch this just very briefly, so you can understand why this is such a perplexing situation. This is a game that came out in 2018. This is the 30th anniversary collection for Street Fighter. Now, because I grew up with these games, I want to play them. I want to support them.
What up? What up? How's it going?
Like this in the ecosystem.
It's me, Havana. How's it going?
Digital Eclipse are one of the companies that put this out. This is one of their games.
But
given what has happened recently, you would be forgiven if you didn't realize that Digital Eclipse put this game out. Now, I want to show you guys something that's very important.
If you like what you see, you follow.
The Mortal Kombat collection already. When you get to this screen, you have offline modes, and we know that the MK collection has offline stuff, so we're not going to focus on that. We know it has the gallery or the museum and the documentary and stuff, and it's like a treasure trove for I guess, historians of the game, although that might be giving it a bit too much credit. But when you go to online, what is that? What is that there? This is Digital Eclipse. This game came out in 2018, I believe in May, if I'm not mistaken. Ranked, casual, create a lobby, join a lobby, leaderboards. This is a fighting game. If you can't get these modes, the bare minimum down, your game is dead on arrival. I don't care if it's a brand new release. I don't care if it's a collection. People can make out like I'm crying all they want. They know it's true as well. Can you imagine Call of Duty? I think someone actually told me they did this, where it would launch with a collection of old Call of Duty games and none of them had online. I think someone told me Modern Warfare 2 did that and the game failed. You can't do that in the modern era. Now, just for argument's sake, this game came out in 2018, so we're just gonna see. Let's see if there's any lobbies that we can join. Let's go for Third Strike.
Are you still there? It's me, Havana.
Anything there? Lo and behold, there are lobbies that we can join. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if you had a hard time getting matches on this game on ranked right now, because the game is 7 years old and it's representing games that came out long before a lot of people in the FGC and the current FGC were even born. So ranked is there, and I am assuming for the first year or two, probably people probably had a lot of fun with that. So these guys are currently in a game now. I don't know if they're gonna let me jump in. That's pretty cool actually. I didn't know that you can see what their life bars are like. I just want to jump into this to show you guys the importance of these sort of modes. Now again, this is a 2018 game. You can forgive it for not having much player activity. I mean, Mortal Kombat fans are definitely not going to get onto it for not having much player activity 7 years on when their games barely last a year. So you can forgive it for having low player activity. But I can imagine when this game came out, and if I remember correctly, when it did come out, when I was playing it on, I believe on the PS4, I think it came out, there were people there. People were playing. So it's completely unacceptable that Digital Eclipse, who has done a fighting game before, who understands the importance of these sort of things, would release Street Fighter's main competitor from the 90s and leave Street Fighter's main competitor without the most important modes. Fighting games are about PvP. Single player content is important. Mortal Kombat changed the game astronomically. Things have never been the same since MK9, and that is a good thing. But single player content will always be secondary to multiplayer content. Always. It doesn't matter what it is. That goes for fighting games, that usually goes for shooting games, that goes for sports games. You can only do so much stuff offline. As I've said multiple times, most of us that grew up with these games have wives, girlfriends, children's, mortgages, 2 jobs. We ain't got time to be traveling to our friend's house, who is likely an hour away now because he moved away to be with the wife or whatever, and set up a session in the living room to play together. We have these things here for convenience. The reason being is because you have too many responsibilities. Oh, these guys left me high and dry. These motherfuckers. Well, you saw anyway there. They were playing. They just didn't want to play with me. So now that we've established that Digital Eclipse is well aware that fighting games, whether they are new or old, need ranked, need lobbies at the bare minimum. Because to be honest with you, in this day and age, you kind of need crossplay as well. But at the bare minimum, ranked and lobbies being there so that you can sit in a lobby like you would at the arcades with your friends and play the game. That's how a lot of the arcade heads enjoyed the game. We would go to our local arcades on the weekends or on Fridays, some of us after school, and we would play the games there. The lobbies replicate that feeling. I ain't got an hour or 2 or 3 hours every single day to drive down to my friends that are 2 hours away. Some of them live in other countries. So the convenience of lobbies is convenient. Like it needs to be there. But somehow, even though they did it before, this went over their heads completely. And there's no ranked mode. And I've had these people on Twitter. And you know what? I'm not going to bore you guys with the stupid responses that I got from people, because there's so many of them. And it blows my mind every single time. So I'll summarize it for you. These games don't need ranked. They came out during a time when playing online wasn't a thing. You're going to see in a little bit, I had Fate on here, who Fate, I guess, represents the more casual side of the Mortal Kombat community. In the sense that he's not part of the FGC, he's not part of the competitive side. He's not really what you would call a sweaty player. So I've got him on here to give his side of it, to be fair. But ranked is not just for people that are trying to get sweaty online. And by the way, if you're worried about running into sweaty people on Mortal Kombat just because there's no lobbies or ranked right now, you're going to run into them on Quick Match anyway. There's a game that came out very recently that I love very much, but I had to be fair and criticize it, which is Bleach Rebirth of Souls. When that game came out, it had no lobbies and no ranked. Although Bleach did do one thing that MK did, and it allowed people to invite others to private rooms, so we can still do a private one-on-one match. MK don't even got that. But when that game came out, it had no ranked. And you know what happened to that game very quickly? It perished. And the day before I said that I was going to quit and I'm done, I can't play this anymore, this is boring, they launched ranked. Now the player base is not big by any stretch of the imagination. But when they launched ranked, players came back. And I play this game all the time. I'm currently sitting at like 9th on the leaderboard, which should tell you that there are people there to play. If you look at these numbers on here, the proof is in the pudding. You get about 85 points per match. So if you do the maths on that, you can see that I've played many, many games. Because they put a mode in where people are going to come back and play the game. Those modes, ranked, is what populates fighting games. That is the most populated mode. It doesn't matter how many times you want to scream into the ether that you don't care about ranked. Nobody cares that you don't care about ranked. Nobody. People care about having these modes in there because that closely replicates what it's like either going to the arcades, playing in a tournament, or even running your own like friendly casuals with your friends in your living room where you're taking turns or you're doing eliminations. You also get to play with a wide array of people. There's only so much time that you can spend looking at the gallery mode. I remember back in the arcades, we would see the attract mode and we would sit there for like 5 minutes watching it, but those were the 90s. We are 30 years on from that time. You have got to move away from those times. You can't just do the same shit over and over again and expect people to be okay with it. So ranked is not just for sweat lords. It's to help build a small community. It's to help build something. And even removed from ranked, even if you didn't have ranked, having basic lobbies in the game helps build a small community. Nobody thinks that the arcade era of Mortal Kombat is going to be resurrected. We know it's done and gone, but this is to appreciate that time. But how are we supposed to appreciate it past the first week if there's nothing to do beyond the first week? All of the content for this game is going to get put on YouTube now. We're going to watch it and it's going to be like, all right, what? So what, I'm just supposed to fight the CPU now? And again, if you're 40, 50 years old, you likely don't have the time to be going over to your boy's house every day to be playing some MK. But I bet you, when your wife goes to bed or you've got some peace and quiet in the house and you're like, do you know what, Bob? I've got an hour. We can jump on MK. That is not possible right now. Now, I know someone's in the comments saying already, oh, they've already said they're going to add lobbies into the game. We don't know if ranked is going to show up. We don't even know if there's actually going to be a spectator mode, because don't put it past them to add lobbies into the game but not have a spectator mode. Please don't put it past them. I really wouldn't be surprised. But all we know right now is that they're considering lobbies, or that it's going to be a post. It's going to be an update in the post. It begs the question, if there wasn't such an outpour of anger on social media about this, would they have put it in the game? Now, I have to ask these people that are working on these games, what is wrong with you guys? Mortal Kombat is like the easiest franchise to have a slam dunk with. As I said earlier, you've got these iconic characters. You've got an iconic story. It's super cool to look at. Everyone loves the gore aspect in the game. There's so many things that are recognizable about the game. It is so easy to not fuck up Mortal Kombat, and yet, for whatever reason, it feels like for the last, 7 years, MK has just been going down the shitter because the people in charge don't know left from right. Now, if I ever got a chance to speak to the people at Digital Eclipse, I would ask them, what possessed you to put ranked and lobbies into Street Fighter, but didn't want to do it for Mortal Kombat? I would love to hear the reasoning. Retrogasms here saying 35 minutes to find the game on Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection because it's quick match only and you have to sit and wait. They better add lobbies because that is a jailable offense. Give me local multiplayer any day of the week. 35 minutes to wait for a game on release day. You would think on release day, at least on release day, quick match would be super populated. 35 minutes to wait. Do you know how that could have been remedied? By having a lobby system. I ain't got to wait for nothing. I call my boy up. I'm like, yo, bro, I don't know how to play these games. You were sick at them back in the day. I'm much younger than you. Teach me. And that was the plan. Because I got my start in the 3D era of Mortal Kombat. Even though I grew up playing these games, I never understood them. So I've got these OGs like James MK, Tom Brady, Fate, Summoning, all these guys that have played these games that I could turn to and be like, yo, I never played these games. Can I jump into a lobby and you guys teach me? I can't do that now. I have to just frame the X button and wait and hope that I'm going to match up with Tom Brady. Like, Ninja Storm Connections did this and it hurt the game astronomically. And with anime fighting games, you almost feel like you can't forgive them because it's stupid. But it's not Mortal Kombat. It's not one of the big three. It's not the biggest of the big three, mind you. Dan Amrich, who I believe worked on the game, said, I know there will be questions. I know there will be incorrect assumptions. I know everything will be criticized. I also know there will be fans who are so busy having fun that they're not posting online to balance out the other voices. I'm excited for you. Enjoy. Yeah, I have questions. I have questions. First of all, the AI art book. Why? And if you're going to use AI, why not use it properly? We've seen how sophisticated it is now. The art book is ugly looking. So why did you release it in that state? My second question to you would be, what incorrect assumptions? The game doesn't have ranks. It doesn't have lobbies. It doesn't have crossplay. You have fragmented your player base, and you've also left them in a fragmented state with nobody to play within those fragments. What incorrect assumptions? Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell people don't buy this game. I get why people don't want to buy it. And if you're one of those people that have all your friends local, you won. you hit the jackpot. You can jump on with your friends. Maybe he's on the same road as you. Maybe you live in a cul-de-sac. That's great. I'm not on here telling people how to spend their money because I bought Bleach Rebirth of Souls on release date. So you can call me an idiot as well. If people like the Legacy Collection because they love these old games, that's great. I'm not here to shit on those people, but I'm not going to lie about it. And it's not like I want to shit on Mortal Kombat. Now, you guys might not be able to see it around my room because you can mostly just see anime stuff. But I have a lot of MK stuff in here. I mean, one of my favorite MK possessions is a sealed box of the original Mortal Kombat trading cards, right? John Tobias artwork. This is sealed. I don't hate Mortal Kombat. I have no hate in my heart for it. I really dislike the people that are in charge of the decisions at Mortal Kombat. They don't seem to know left from right. And I can almost guarantee you, if you put me in a meeting with these guys and I heard some of the shit that they were saying, I would probably look sideways. I'd probably come back to you guys and be like, they don't know what they're doing over there. It's so simple to not fuck this game up. It's so simple to not fuck up. And yet somehow you do it every single time. Every time. And you know what? I know that this isn't directly NRS, but it is weird that this game doesn't have these basic features, and when Digital Eclipse did a collection last time, it did. So it begs the question, was there some conversations going on where it was like, hey, I don't think people are going to care about this stuff? It makes no sense. It makes no sense to me. It's frustrating as a fan of Mortal Kombat. I do not want to sit here and dog on the franchise, but you make it so easy. You make it so easy. It's so easy! Now, you can call me a hater all you want. That's completely fine. But if you wanted this game to be received well, you would have done the bare minimum. You would have done the bare minimum. And the reason that I know that is because you've already put out updates, because you've seen the backlash saying you're going to add things in later on. But that's not good enough, because you are charging people $50 or about £37 here in the UK for this game without the bare minimum. That is unacceptable. So the backlash that you are getting is 100% deserved. But you know what? Instead of just hearing from me, we're going to hear from it on the other side. Now, I brought Fate on here because Fate represents the other side of the Mortal Kombat community. The more casual side. He's not interested in the FGC. He's not interested in getting sweaty on the game. He just wants to have fun with his friends. Although that is going to be difficult since you didn't give him a lobby system. I know we looked at Mortal Kombat in a different way, which is, I think, like the bulk of our interactions previously. I looked at it more from like the fighting game aspect, or like on a more competitive level, or not even competitive, but like my interest is primarily in one-to-one combat or playing people, playing randoms. And I know you looked at it more from, I don't want to say casual standpoint, but you looked at it more from non-FGC lens. So obviously the news has come out, and I wanted to get you on to discuss this because you're probably the best person to talk on this because of how many videos you've made about Mortal Kombat regarding these topics. It's come out now that there's no lobby system, there's no ranked system, there's no crossplay. Now, as somebody that, you've said before that you're not really interested in the competitive side of Mortal Kombat, you're not interested in the same sort of things that maybe I would be. What do you think about that?
It's disgraceful. So I just before this, I loaded up Digital Eclipse Cowabunga Collection, the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection, Samurai Showdown Collection, and guess what? You can create lobbies. So that's already like, that's just unacceptable shit. Like, I may not care about like competitive side, but like, you know what it's like. You and the boys, you just want to jump in, play some matches together, something nice and easy to do. And like Dragoon, like, because you've like either met or you've heard of Dragoon from my side. Like, he used to play on X-Band back on the Sega Mega Drive, and that had lobbies. A 16-bit console with a plug-in cart to allow you to connect to other users in the United States had lobbies.
That's crazy.
How the hell does this? Oh, we're talking, I'd say, what, 90s, man? Yeah, probably late 90s, like give or take, possibly the year. It's unacceptable. Like, because we'll probably run comps and shit just for shits and giggles, but like, just like, apparently there's just quick play. Like, this is just like, it's, you know what I thought? I thought, do you remember, I don't know if you're a Diablo fan, right? But there was that time where when they announced Diablo Mobile, and people thought they were going to get like the new next Diablo game being announced. And everyone was like, the fuck is going on? And on stage, they go, what, you guys don't have phones? Remember that particular meme? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember. I remember how annoyed people got. Yeah.
So let's just put Digital Eclipse up there, right? So when the backlash from this happens, they'll be like, yeah, but don't you have any real life friends to bring over? It's like, it doesn't, no, not in this day and age, bro. Like, we need that online. I mean, granted, like when I stream this tomorrow night, I can run Parsec, which is an online, essentially an online. I don't even know how to describe it. It basically allows people to log into my computer, like if very limited amount of security. Sorry, so a lot of security, right? But I can play any game with them as long as it's got a 2-player mode. So in theory, I can play people tomorrow night outside of, Mortal Kombat. But we shouldn't be doing that. This shit should be like fucking baseline in the game, man. It's unreal.
Now I've put up a post obviously about it. Perfect Legend put up a post about it, and a lot of people, I would say, people that are not happy with accepting the below, I would say below minimum. This isn't even bare minimum. This is below minimum. And I've had a lot of responses from, surprising as well, very surprising responses from people that think that this is acceptable for a fighting game. Now I don't know about you, but whether you are super casual on a fighting game or you're hardcore, the primary function of a fighting game is to fight other people. Back in the arcade days, we would go to the arcades and would play our friends there, or would play randoms. These days, in 2025 going into 2026, a lot of people's friends are scattered about. We've got a lot of responsibilities, especially the Mortal Kombat crowd. They're much older because it's an older game. This is a collection honoring games from the 90s. So these are going to be guys in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that are playing this game predominantly. I'm under the assumption that most of these men or women have families, and most of them can't see their friends and sit on a couch all the time and play the game. So you would think in your mind, even if you're doing a collection to honor these old games, the best way to get the most out of them is to create a system that replicates the arcade feel. The responses that I got from people were like, well, this is a 90s game, what did you expect? And yet other collections, like you said, have lobbies, have ranked. So I don't understand this mentality. As somebody that, you're not, I wouldn't say you're part of the competitive scene, what would you say to these people? Because you kind of represent their mindset a little bit more.
This is something that, again, you and I have always had, like, straight down the line, customer first, right? It doesn't matter how much you love something. It doesn't matter how much you've been waiting for something like this. If you cannot be objective and go, look, I'll enjoy the games in their product. However, you've got to call this shit out. You have to. Otherwise, we are no different than what we get in the NRS scene, where people will just glaze over stuff, not talk about it, and then put down other people because they're calling out stuff that they legitimately and others can see. Hey, this isn't good. You've got to call it out. Those people, they will just do more harm than good. It's like that. It's like suicidal empathy. They're just like, oh, but as long as I don't look bad, as long as I look positive, overly positive. Oh God, I fucking can't stand that shit, man. Like, just people prefer honesty. I know you get a lot of shit for it. I've gotten a lot of shit for it. But I think even if they don't like you, they can at least respect the fact that you are going to always give your honest opinion, whether it hurts their feelings or not. That's what matters most. So
yeah, I'm very perplexed by it. But one thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed this as well, but over in the Tekken community, when the Tekken team update the game in a way that the community finds unsatisfactory, the community sets them on fire for it. Like, their whole Twitter page gets blown up. I mean, just yesterday they updated Tekken. They tried to make out like it was going to be all of these changes to these characters. It was 2 changes to Armor King and Leo. and then the rest was for updating the shop. So obviously people torched them for that.
Yeah.
Over on the Street Fighter side, I've seen multiple players getting onto them for loads of different things. But when it comes to Mortal Kombat, whether it's the older player base or the newer player base, they seem to just want to sort of bend over for whatever they get. And I don't really understand why. Like, what is it about Mortal Kombat that makes the community just want to accept slop? Because it is the biggest out of the three.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, to be honest, I don't understand it at all. If I had a camera and a YouTube channel back when the 3D era was coming out, the hate I had for towards Ed Boon and the creation going from 2D to 3D was palpable, right? I was pissed off like to the max. What the fuck are you making a violent Tekken for, bro? I was livid, right? So even though I was massive MK fan, I was still disappointed in the direction, right? But I noticed, I honestly, it's got to be social media, dude. There has to be a central point here, and I think it comes down to like there maybe two things. One, the perception that, oh, but it's still great, can't say anything negative, don't want to have those doors closed to us. Or two, there's something, not all the dogs are barking, right? And they are so indoctrinated by this, like everything with the logo on the tin is amazing, that they will just like suck it up. And that is just like almost the worst type of customer, because then you never get any objective feedback ever.
A perfect example of this is I put up a post and it basically said that Mortal Kombat fans are about to feel the same sort of sting as the anime fans do.
Yep.
Because a lot of the times they will release our fighting games without ranked or lobbies. And that basically kills the game. And no matter how many times people scream to the rafters about it, if a fighting game does not have ranked or lobbies, it's on live support almost immediately. Now, a prime example of this is Bleach, Rebirth of Souls, that came out in March. They launched it with no lobbies and no ranked. And everybody was like, what the fuck? And you had all of these smooth brains going, this game was made for Bleach fans and we don't need that stuff. So what happened was, a week after the game came out, if you go and look at the numbers, the game had lost almost all of its players. They had all disappeared. Now, I kept on playing because there was free match, which is basically just quick match. You can go play a quick match with somebody and then leave. And I kept playing because I was like, man, Bleach hasn't had a fighting game for what, like 15 years? And it got to July. And I put up a post, funnily enough, the day before, and I said, I'm done. That's it. This is the most that I can do to support the community. It's the most I can play. There's nothing on this game. All of the people that were screaming about this is for Bleach fans, this is for nobody. And so nobody's left. The day after, Tamsoft updated the game with ranked, and suddenly you saw hundreds of players come back. Now, it's not a massive player base, but there's hundreds of players still. So there's something there that I can play. I mean, I was just playing it just now. And I tried to explain to these people on Twitter that it doesn't matter how many times you scream about it. If they don't put ranked or lobbies into the game, all you're going to do is stare at the gallery mode or that documentary they put in 100 times until they decide to update it. And they're arguing with me going, it's from the 90s, it's from the 90s. But to your point earlier, you said that a 90s game had a lobby system.
Yep. So with X-Band, if people want to look it up, you could get it on, actually, Dragoon's got pictures he's showing me here. X-Band on Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. And it was literally just a cartridge you plugged in, and it allowed you to connect online with other players in the US playing these games with a lobby from the 90s. Fightcade has a lobby. Arcadesia has a lobby, right? Those two, like those essentially fighting game front ends for online play, both of them have lobbies. To add to that, Digital Eclipse, like when the games were coming out and people started going, hey, which ones are going to have online or not? And they said, well, obviously we're not doing the handhelds. Again, I don't really fully understand it because, like, again, you can get on Fightcade and play these. And nobody's expecting to be a master at the fucking Game Gear version of Mortal Kombat, right? Like seriously. They said something about, well, you know, it was ad hoc connections and there's something wrong with the timings and it's too precise and we can't do it. Okay, all right, fine. So 16-bit, 32-bit, you know, arcade versions. Okay, cool. And that's the last time we heard anything about their online stuff. And people have been screaming at it, going, well, where's the lobbies? I know, like, one of my boys, Godly, he's been, like, putting out videos going, where's the lobbies? Can we even, like, private invite each other? And the Cowabunga collection, I just tested it. I can go in and choose tournament fighters from the Super NES and go create lobby, which is pretty much just inviting someone in, but it still gives you the option to do it. There's, like, you can still do it. There's nothing in, like, this is, like, yeah, as you said, one of the big 3 fighting games. Like, even just having the basic necessities should be there for those that want it. You know, it's not a product for me. It's for everyone. So you gotta cover all your bases.
I said to a couple of people on Twitter that it might be okay for you because you don't like playing on ranked, And their responses to me were always, I don't want to deal with sweaty players on ranked. And I said to them, well, you weren't going to have to anyway, because you could just play offline. Why do you want
Yeah.
people to purchase a game, or why are you okay with a game coming out that only caters to half of the player base? I'm not
Yeah.
saying remove the single player stuff in a collection. That would be stupid.
Yeah.
But why would you want them to neuter a game just because you have no interest in that section of the game? If there was a Call of Duty collection coming out and it had Modern Warfare 1 and 2 on it, for example, the old Black Ops,
Yep.
and they brought this game out without online ranked, do you think it would be okay for people to be upset about that? If they released Gran Turismo 1, 2, and 3, and they didn't have online lobbies or ranked or whatever racing games have, or like Mario
Yep.
Kart, for example, old Mario Kart games, and they
Yep.
didn't have basic online features just because they're older games, you would understand why people are annoyed, right? Why they wouldn't want to buy it.
One of the best online games I ever played was Uncharted 2. That was some amazing online multiplayer. And then Sony, when they started bringing some of these games back in collections and stuff, and they take out the multiplayer, it's like, what are you doing? Like, you know, like once you do the story mode outside of achievement hunting or platinum chasing, a lot of the time you'll just jump in, you know, with your friends, family, whatever, or just some casuals and just play some online just to chill out. I mean, I've made mistakes like that where with, you know, it's like, oh, well, I don't care about MK online really, so maybe they should just nuke it, right? But like, you can't be like that, right? Because this is a product. And people have to remember that we're customers. It doesn't matter how much you love something, you've got to be customer first every single time. If you don't call it out, you're no different to shills, you're no different to bootlickers, and then bad stuff just keeps being allowed to happen. I mean, I can't get over, man. I can't get over the fact that we don't have this shit. Like this is just like bread and butter for almost any game that has some sort of like, you know, mode where you can beat the snot out of each other or shoot each other. Imagine Battlefield 6 coming out with no fucking multiplayer. Like just co-op campaign. You'll be right, bros. Nah, it just wouldn't happen.
It's insane to me how the video game industry has successfully trained people into accepting slop. And I don't blame anyone for purchasing it because it's a Mortal Kombat collection. I'm not going to purchase it because of that now. There's no interest for me. The interest is completely gone. I have no interest in anything to do with the game anymore. I've heard some people saying they're going to add stuff in post-patch, and that's fine. But if you're going to add it in post-patch, I'll just wait. I'll wait until you do add it in and I'll see what you've added in. It was unfortunate with Rebirth of Souls because we didn't know until the day before that it wasn't going to have any of this stuff. And some of us had already gotten the game. We just couldn't play it early. But with MK, at least we know now. And what's going to happen is what always happens with things like this. It's going to die very quickly. The Capcom Fighting Collection, people still play them. Like people, because you can go online and play with your friends. This isn't going to have that. This is going to get about a week's worth of play. They'll farm some YouTube content out of the stuff in there, and then that will be it. And God forbid they do a 3D collection for the 3D fans, which those games are still kept alive today because of the online. You know, as you've probably seen on the podcast with Tom showing it off. God forbid they release those games without online, and then you'll have these people going, "Oh, what are you?" Because it feels like, I think to a lot of people watching, that all we do is complain about Mortal Kombat, but there is only things to complain about. It's like every single time we're like, "Oh, this is a slam dunk." Like I remember how excited you were when they announced this, and then as time went on, you were like, "Oh, really? Why are you not adding that in? Why is this like that?" And now there's no basic online features. It feels like we're always dunking on MK, but they're just giving us slam dunks each time.
Yeah, it's sort of weird. Like, you know, I think I reached out to you at the time around Gamescom because that's when I started to notice behaviors in the community, you know, some of the kind of glazing and self-preservation that people had. And, you know, I mean, you and I, we were like each other's biggest hater, right? It was like the most abusive marriage of all time. And I love it. You know why? Because the thing is though, that like it also, like I learned stuff out of it. It humbled me in ways that I didn't anticipate, and I needed that. I don't know if it's because it's all they got in their life. If they don't stay objective and they keep coming to you and me and going, all you do is hate it. Well, we don't like these things because we care about what's coming out, right? If they do a 3D collection, like your hair's going to turn fucking bright red if they don't have online player at all, except for quick play. They're going to hear about it, and they should, because you got to have the basic bare necessities in there for those that want to jump immediately online and play people, or those that want to play offline. You got to cover both camps. Going back to your question about MK, the community, what do you think it is? Like, what do you think is the problem?
This is going to sound like really, really, really condescending, but I'm just gonna. This is what I've observed. And Mortal Kombat is such a gigantic franchise that you
Yeah,
have a lot of people that play. There's no nice way to say this.
that's
You
all
have
right.
a lot of
Right.
you have a lot of people that play games like Madden or FIFA or stuff like that. They're not really into fighting games, but Mortal Kombat is
Yep,
like super cool. It's super gory. Everyone
yep,
plays Mortal Kombat, so you have a lot of these voices that are chiming in on things that
yep,
they don't understand. Like there's things that I don't understand about Gears of War. I love it, but I'm not gonna comment on it because I don't. There's things I don't
yep.
get. They comment on these things like, "Oh, you fighting game people, you're always complaining." What they don't understand is that fighting games are already a niche, and like we do have
Mm,
to push for basic things so that our games can even be noticed and played. And when we
yep.
do push for basic things, you get something like Street Fighter 6, where it's just exploded everywhere. With Mortal Kombat, it feels like they are on the fighting game side of it, the fighting game community side. MK's been getting dunked on for a very, very long time. In a lot of cases, rightfully so. The community sort
Mm,
of does it to themselves because fighting games are kind of dominated by Japanese fighting games. I think when they
mm,
look at MK and the way it's designed, it kind of looks silly to them, especially the modern ones. I think that has made people super defensive now. So when
mm.
something is coming out, they don't want to hear it. They're like, they already know when something gets announced. Fate, Mike, Tom Brady, someone's gonna say something, and then we'll come out and say
Yeah,
something, and I'll say something that they can't disagree with. In
yeah,
2025, launching a game about forget ranked or forget crossplay for a second. Let's just boil it down to the most basic feature. A lobby
yeah,
system. They turn around to me and instead of saying that, you know what, you're right, because they know we're right, that's a basic
yeah.
function in a game, they'll just go, "Oh, you hater."
Mm,
They're ultra defensive. And a prime example of the fighting game community holding another game and another franchise to the fire is Tekken. Tekken has been
mm.
getting flamed, and they just put Tekken 3 on the PlayStation Network, and everyone was
I
like,
saw that.
yeah, everyone was like, great, but we can't play online. So, what, we're supposed to use shared play now? Like, we asked you for a Tekken collection. So, if you go onto the original Tekken post where they said, here's Tekken 3, it's going to be on the PlayStation Network, go to the replies and go to the quotes. Everyone's saying, this isn't what we asked for. We asked for the
Yeah,
classic Tekken games with lobbies and ranked. We're not asking for anything else. The thing is, Harada will put Tekken Tag 2 up to download without online. And then we'll complain, and he'll go, "Oh, see, all you guys do is complain." And I'm like, because you're not listening. But with the MK side, it doesn't matter what NRS does. The
mm,
the diehard NRS defenders will let NRS could take Scorpion Sub-Zero out of a game that already exists. They could take them out of like Deadly Alliance, for example, and then
yep.
launch Deadly Alliance with no ranked or online. And we'll say, "Hey, where's Scorpion and Sub-Zero? Why did you remove them?" And they'll go, "Oh,
Mm,
shut up, man. You're always complaining. You can't talk to these people."
yeah, yeah. I know. I sometimes like I said it a while ago. I think I just need to put horse blinders on. Like you're fine, right? But like I've just as I've sort of gotten deeper into the 2D aspect side of the community, I just go, fuck, man. Like, nah. I'm just gonna stay here, right? I'm
Mm,
just gonna stay here, focus on what I'm doing, and do that because, like, I mean, being on PC, like, primarily a PC gamer, like, there's many options, right, to get around, games that decide not to have online. They'll like necro games from 20 years ago, and because it had a LAN mode, they can get online and play for free. I mean, keep in mind, this shit is for free. Like
yeah.
people doing this stuff, making Fightcade or things like that, for free for us to enjoy. And then you got a company that's being paid, like, Atari is a massive publisher. Digital Eclipse has been doing this for a long time. And then their own catalog of games proves that they can do it. And then you get to Mortal Kombat, the love letter that they have been wanting to do for so long, and they just drop the ball. And it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I thought crossplay was going to be the only thing they were working on post-launch, right? You can play cross-gen, sure, great. I get to play with 3 people over on the Epic Game Store, woo, right? But like, fucking, okay, crossplay, all right, okay, fine, sure, but no lobbies, no private invite. What are you doing? Unacceptable.
Completely
And you have to
unacceptable.
call it out, even if it feels negative. The thing is, though, that we're trying, you, me, for both sides, we're trying to get these products up to the standard that should everyone be going, yes, we deserve this, because they forget that without our money, they don't survive. It's not the other way around. They need us. We don't need them. I remember when you said, when the collection was coming out, I remember you saying, look, I'm going to support it. Hearing that, and then my reactions over the time, Dragoon is thinking about canceling his Steam copy, Like he is so close to getting out the door, and this guy used to compete on X-Band back in the day. Like he's a nightmare to fight against. This is a diehard MK fan, and this is the sort of when you start pushing those guys away, you know, and guys like such as yourself that aren't necessarily massive into the 2D area, but we're willing to throw the money down out of support to get possible collections down the track. If you start pushing those people away, you need to start asking questions as to why.
For these people that have probably never played half the MK games that either of us have played, to be sitting there going that, you know, we don't want MK to do well. Of course I want it to do well, but I'm not going to throw my money at slot. And this is garbage.
Well, I have 3 copies. Like 2 copies I've fully paid for. One's still on pre-order. So I've already paid for the collectors. I've already paid for Steam, and I've already got a PS5 deluxe one just so I could get the extra shit. So I locked in. Godly on my Discord sent me this picture from Steven. He said, apparently we will be sharing some initial information about our online plans starting today, with plans to roll out our first post-launch update in the coming weeks. We wanted to do something a little bit different for online and hope you enjoy what we have planned. Coming weeks.
Yeah, I mean, they can wait then. If it's going to come out in a few weeks and they're going to update it properly, then I'll buy it in a few weeks. I'm not buying a full price game for basic features missing. So... yeah. So that's my rant for the day. I don't really have anything else to say. It's just another fumble. I am deeply, deeply concerned for the next Mortal Kombat game. Deeply concerned. I mean, we know they're being sold off now. We don't know where they're going to go. We don't even know if it's going to be with NRS. We have no idea what's going on. But either way, it's just fumble after fumble after fumble. It's so simple to get these things right. If you are the kind of person that thinks that this is acceptable, then you are exactly what these companies love. Even if you are the kind of person that is not going to play online. I'm not going to play the single player content, and I would still say that releasing a collection without any single player content would be dumb. Why would you alienate the single player consuming people? It's a collection, give them something to do. So for all of you saying, nah, this game don't need it, and for anyone that ever says fighting games don't need ranked and lobbies, you people are destroying the very thing that we love. You are bad. You are bad for the genre. There's no nice way to say it. Never be the kind of consumer, never be the kind of customer, the kind of recipient of a piece of media that says that less is okay. No, we had these basic things 7 years ago and beyond. Like you heard Fate say, they had these things back in the 90s. Why are we asking for it in 2025? Honestly, man, NRS, if you ever see this, please get your act together. Get your act together. Did nobody from your studio like speak up, or someone at Warner Brothers say, yo, what are you guys doing? If this is Digital Eclipse's fault, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We can only assume. There's so many fuck-ups coming from every single direction. We don't even know where to look anymore. Everyone's blaming this. Everyone's blaming that. We don't know if it's Digital Eclipse. We don't know if it's Warner Bros. We don't know if it's NRS. I'm not going to make assumptions. I'm just going to blame all of you. But the next Mortal Kombat game is so simple. Story mode. Now, story mode, you might fuck that up, but I can forgive you for that because a story that you might think is good, I might think is bad. So that's fine. I'll critique the story fairly. If I don't like it, whatever. Iconic characters, okay? Don't cut your characters. For the love of God, return Scorpion to Hanzo Hasashi. Slam dunk. You've got so many iconic characters, you can't possibly fuck that one up. Ranked. Lobbies or rooms. Give it a tournament mode. People like tournaments. I mean, that is kind of what Mortal Kombat is. That should be a given. And put Conquest mode in there. Or just weave that into the story mode. People have been asking for Conquest mode for so long. You do those things, and it launches with crossplay and it works, people might say, there's not much to do outside of Conquest. If you pack Conquest correctly, you'll have enough to do. But people might say, after like maybe 30, 40 hours, the single player guys might be like, there's not much to do. Mini games. You've had mini games before. Chess combat. If you don't want to use your brains and create a new one, just rehash the old ones. Chess combat, puzzle combat, cart combat, whatever it was called. Just rehash them. Give them something to do. Give them leaderboards. You're done. You are done. The replay value is there. Then the rest of us sweats can sit on ranked or combat league, whatever you want to call it, and then people can enjoy and do streams in lobbies. That's it. That's all you got to do. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna launch the game without crossplay, and then you're gonna say, "Give us 8 months. We'll get it sorted." And we're gonna look at you and be like, "Are you kidding me?" And then you're gonna have these smooth brains on Twitter going, "Oh, you guys are complaining again." That's what's gonna happen. Okay, if you do that, that's what's going to happen. I'll be the first one here saying you fucked up again. And once again, this is like the easiest franchise to get things correct with. The absolute easiest. And for the love of God, just bring in some people that understand fighting games to help you with balancing. Because No matter how good MK games are, they are always broken. They are always broken, they are always glitchy, they are always all over the place. So bring in some people that understand fighting games, okay? All you gotta do.
Alright, here we go. Alright, here we go.
I don't know if that's a problem, but... Hi everyone, welcome to a super scary super art power hour. My name is Night Zhang. I am a principal character concept artist on 2XPO, and my role is to bring your favorite League of Legends characters to the wonderful world of fighting games. So let's get started! I've been with the 2XPO team since 2022, and the first champion I've got to work on that has actually come out is Vi. I was the character designer on Vi, so I designed her costume and the general way that she looks in the game, and she was an absolute joy to work on, especially because the team that worked on her was so passionate about bringing our version of her to the screen to all of you. And more recently, Warwick, the uncaged wrath of Zon, has just joined the roster. I was honored again to be able to say that I was his character designer, bringing a new and fresh take on Warwick to 2XKO. I've also done a lot of illustrations for the game as well, so if you've ever seen us at EVO, for any of our booth stuff at EVO as well. So today we're going to be bringing Katarina, the Sinister Blade, into 2XKO. We're going to be translating her from her original League design and bringing her into a little bit of this new environment. I'll start with a research pass, and then we will go into a phase called exploration, where we'll just try to come up with as many different ideas as possible. From there, we do some level of refinement, so that might be pulling her more into the style of 2X before finalizing her design ready for the character art team to take that along through the production process. We're going to talk about processes for designing a champ for 2XKO, why we make certain decisions. So hopefully by the end of this, we will be able to see a vision of who Katarina might be and what she might look like in 2XKO as a fighting game character. So normally that would take in itself about a week, and then the concepting process typically takes about 2 to 3 months, but we're gonna do all that in an hour. So let's figure out how that's gonna work out. But ultimately the process will still be the same, and we'll still get something at the end of it. Hopefully that will be a very fun and cool looking Katarina. And just to emphasize, this is not going to ship in-game. Katarina was originally part of a very early slice of 2XKO. At the time, 2XKO was still a 1v1 fighting game. Now, as a 2v2 tag fighter, Katarina just kind of proved to be too potent a champion, and so while we currently have no plans to put Katarina on our roster, if and when we do get to her, we hope that we can do her justice. But we are going to focus on developing a version of Katarina that we probably wouldn't ship in-game. Since it is the season of Halloween, we will be endeavoring to make a Katarina that is just a little bit darker than what you might expect her to be. Since she is the Sinister Blade, we're just going to make sure that that is very obvious. The beginning of every concept process for any champ on 2XKO starts with research. Research is really important because as artists, we are always trying to operate from not only a place of non-bias, but also always trying to expand our understanding of where we could take champs in the future. How I choose reference is very much from a perspective of let's do what is expected and then let's try to find the unexpected element. Even though a champ might have certain obvious wins that we could definitely, lean into, Katarina is essentially an assassin, keeping her light and agile. When it comes to building reference and research, it's about expanding that understanding by trying to ask questions about how can we make these characters feel evolved in their canon. So for Katarina, when I'm building out her mood board is very much focused on kind of expanding the material reads that she already has. I'm thinking a lot about what does she already have and also what does she not have. Noxus, which is the place that she comes from, the faction that she belongs to, has a very particular look and style to it already. So I want her to definitely feel still like a citizen of Noxus. So this research that I'm doing is predominantly fashion research. I think fashion is a very underutilized element of character design. Katarina has a lot of leathers. She's got the metal spikes. Noxus has all of your classic black toned leathers. Katarina has like a metal bracer with spikes on it. She's obviously got a very iconic red hair. And that kind of makes up the bulk of her different materials. All of those are elements that are relatively easy to work with, but I want to figure out how we can push Katarina away from just being what we know her to be. So we're gonna see how this goes. We're gonna see what we come up with. So let's get started. I think probably the first thing I'm going to do is chop all her hair off because that's the first thing I always try with long-haired characters is just to see what they look like with like short hair, short bob. I don't know why, but we'll give it a try because no one gets to stop me today. So I'm gonna try it. So the main program that I personally use is Clip Studio Paint. Clip Studio Paint has a lot of like interesting gimmicks that I think serve concept pretty well. Riot uses Wacom Cintiqs. Cintiqs are definitely hard to beat once you've gotten used to them. The other tool that I use is Torbox. Torboxes are sort of a third-party tool which allow you to put any degree of keyboard shortcuts and key them to buttons and dials on the actual interface itself. Tools like the Torbox, for me, are really helpful because they help me streamline my entire workflow to just like one central piece of technology. And this little poop icon brush, some random person in the world made it, and I think basically everyone I know uses the little poop man. He saves lives. He saved my life. Everything about the way that I work is basically geared towards making sure that the least amount of resistance is between me and the act of drawing. We always want to take the path of least resistance for champs because the reality is if we don't do it, there's no one, succeeding us in the process that's going to be able to make those big swings again. So as concept artists, our main role is to try to make as many large swings as possible so that ultimately, if we do decide to go with something that looks very similar to base, it was because we had gone through this whole process to decide, it worked better, it feels like it fits our game. I will always want to, try and adapt and evolve a character than just do what came before. Partially because it's also just way more fun. It's way more enjoyable to do that for work. I'm a big proponent of, if we can change it, we should, just to see what it looks like, just to see if it makes the character feel fresh and exciting. I'm also, I think, a little bit of an irresponsible designer, because I spend a lot of time thinking about things that kind of don't matter. I get really wrapped up in details early on in the process that help me understand who they are. That I think, classically, if you were training to be a concept artist, you'd be told, like, early exploration should be quick and fast and don't feel too precious about stuff. And I do all that, but I also want to take my time to understand, like, who this character is and get to know them a bit more. You know, typically I'll have a couple months to do that process. I'll have a couple months to really talk to them and get to understand, like, what makes them tick, what issues they have, what tragedies happen to them, and how do they respond to those things. And so over the course of designing a character, I will get to know them in a way that feels personal, only because it allows me to make decisions kind of on their behalf. If you're going to approach a champ, you have to do it kind of like holistically on all sides. So know who they are in the canon, and then dare to ask them who they might want to be in the future. We generally have certain rules in regards to, like, what is possible and what is expensive. A lot of cloth on characters is a really expensive thing to add. Having really bulky things like capes are really expensive. I remember Darius was a huge thing. We were convinced that we'd never do another cape again, at least to save our animators a little bit more of their lifespan from having to do another cape character. So then our role is really to think about, like, here's all the ways that we can make this a less painful process. One of the things that I was really surprised by when I started working on characters for 2XKO was how much noise gets added by stuff you don't expect. So shadows and line work are part of our cell shading style. You need to have line work on most things that are important and can, like, communicate form, and you need to have shadows to do very much the same thing. But a combination of those two things is a killer. It's absolutely this, like, visual noise generating machine to have a combination of too much line work and too many shadows and too many colors. It's surprising how easy it is to lose a character completely just by having, you know, a few too many details. So you kind of have to be willing to die on whatever hill your art creates. I've been shown many times that even a simple, boring design can be a nightmare in terms of noise, because there's that added value of movement and motion. There's the light shifting around, there's, you know, effects and all that. So it almost becomes a task too difficult to handle when you kind of just full send every detail, full send every design, just say, well, since it's, you know, not that complicated on the concept sheet, it shouldn't be that bad. I've been surprised many times, and I will, I think, continue to be surprised by how easy it is to mess something as seemingly simple as that, to mess that up pretty severely. Other things that we tend to try to avoid doing, we try to avoid putting things in front of shoulders. So pauldrons are separate from having things hang in front. A lot of capes will hang in front, a lot of cowls will hang in front. Yasuo's whole cape assortment with his cowl was problematic for the longest time. And they managed to make it work, but it required a lot of very delicate kind of animation work and fine-tuning, which, again, the cost of it is heavy. When we do it, we need to make sure that the cost of it is worth it. It creates a better design, it makes the character feel, you know, more fantastical and more aspirational, and that the character is not otherwise also expensive in other ways. Typically for fighting games, you want people to be able to track extremities, so their hands, the head, the feet, and you want them to be able to distinguish individual parts of the body. So you want them to be able to tell the head apart from the torso, arms apart from the body, legs and feet separate from each other and all that. Especially on a character like Katarina, who has kind of predominantly black leather on her. Areas of different tone, like her skin tone, actually ends up being a way to save that element for her. While they're tracking the opponent's movements, you don't want them to have the mental stack of also trying to figure out what the heck their character is doing on the other side. You know, even if they inputted something they think is right, we want to make sure everything's recognizable. So that's where animators will do their best to take the elements we've designed to create really strong key poses. We're constantly trying to make decisions that not only push our characters further than they were before, but at the same time emphasize their best parts, emphasize what makes them cool, and also not make it a terrible, terrible thing to work on. I think the allure of a concept artist is that you get to be the ideas person, you get to be in the room with all of the people talking about the big aspirational thing. But games are a collaborative process, and we are part of a production. And I think when you don't consider who is going to have to make those parts of your ideas real, you sort of basically give up your part of the process. Because I could say, yeah, it'd be super great if every character had a million tassels and all of them had long hair and flowing capes, because I love fabric, I love drawing fabric. But to know that it would cost coworkers of mine many, many months of their life to make that happen, only for it to kind of have been not a big deal for all of that to have looked the way it did. It's an exchange I try to be very cognizant of, because games are expensive. People should be spending their time on stuff that really makes a difference. And so always trying to make choices based on how much of a difference we believe it makes for that character. Coming from being an illustrator, I think you have a lot of preconceived notions about, like, yeah, I know how to make good art, and therefore I know how to transition into a new space that also makes good art. But design is not about making good art. It's about making these functional vehicles for other things. To only ever treat a concept task as a desire to make a nice looking character that is just meant to be cool, without ever considering, like, what it might do to the player experience, what it might do to the ease of the development of that design in particular. That was something I had to learn pretty quickly on this team, only because fighting games are so particular in clarity. While we want to make sure that our game stands separate and in a way that feels unique and new, you can't completely get rid of some of these, like, basic design philosophies, because what they did was allow people to get into fighting games. What it allowed them to do was to play these competitively and, not allow an intricately looking game to prevent them from playing it on a high technical level. We want to be a nice, flashy looking game, but we also want to be a game that people will not need to fight in order to understand and to play. Those are all things that we try to think about when designing, is just like, what are we adding to or detracting from? Concept has a kind of responsibility to consider some of these things ahead of everyone else, because we have such this, like, early access look to what is going to end up being the scaffolding for everyone else's role. There's a lot of, I'd say, pressure, but I mean, it is just our job. It is the responsibility of concept art to take that seriously. So I think working on this team has really shown me what it means to take that seriously. Top-down League of Legends gets to kind of focus in on that, like, top half of the character and really build posing, attack animations, character design, color palettes off of that top-down read. For 2XKO, we're seeing them from that flat side view. A question people had about Vi when she came out was, why did we make these decisions? Why are certain parts of her flipped, and why do they not sit on the side that we expect them to on League of Legends? When players see a change in that, they react in a way of, like, oh, so is this not canon? Is this, like, a totally different version of them, or is this just a totally different character? It's because the camera view is a pretty drastic change in your perception of who they are. We always design for player 1 or P1, so they are always starting on the left-hand screen, looking towards the right-hand screen. So what you see most often is usually the right-hand side of their body. When that happens, certain details become a little bit obfuscated. So Katarina's scar typically lives on the left eye, but if you don't get to see that side of her face very often, then this really core part of her visual identity starts to get lost. When it's such a fast game, when it's such a fast kind of a heavy motion type of environment, you want to give each of those really important character details a moment to shine. The best way to do that is to shift all of these different details, move them around, rearrange them. But the thing we try to keep in mind most is we're a fighting game first and a League of Legends game second. With that comes a responsibility to not only account for, this love and devotion that people have had to League of Legends, but also our commitment to making a really beautiful and modern fighting game. The reason why I flip back and forth, I think every artist has their own way of doing this, but it's essentially kind of forcing your brain to reframe, readjust, and reassess the thing that you're looking at. I flip really frequently. It's almost like walking into a different room while having a thought. Your brain just automatically switches in context. And so even though I've been looking at the same piece for a little bit of time, my brain registers that sudden change in angle and in visual as a whole new piece. And sometimes my eyes can catch onto something, sometimes they don't. But I like doing it, and at this point I do it pretty frequently just to keep refreshing the image in my mind, because I have a variety of personal quirks and flaws that always catch me when I'm drawing. One of those things is I'm really bad at symmetry, so when I draw things tend to start to slant, and they start to tip and are not parallel with each other. So when I flip stuff, it's super easy to see when one side of the face is drastically different in height versus another part of the face, and vice versa. It's great for looking at values, checking proportion. So I do it frequently enough, at this point out of habit, but classically just because when you are constantly forcing your brain to reassess the piece, you just kind of get better context for where it is at the moment. And so at this point, I do it perhaps a little too much, which is super great for me, not great for anyone who has to watch me draw. So, sorry, but also highly recommend it as well if you don't flip your stuff. I know some people rotate it. They rotate their canvas quite a bit to achieve the same effect, but rotating takes too long when I can just press a button. I'm always trying to think about silhouette, and I'm always trying to think about sort of the proportion of shapes, because in a fighting game, characters are constantly moving, so you don't even get the opportunity to really appreciate a lot of the finer details of a character, which we add to make them interesting, to make them look cool. But when they're 99% of the time when you're watching a fighting game match, they are moving, they're jumping, they're flipping. You don't get to see most of the details we put into a character. But what you do get to see is this sort of a little bit of that silhouette as they're, performing their key pose, as they're about to, if we ever pause, really linger on a moment to make a certain hit feel stronger. Those are the things that you really see and internalize. So as I'm doing early explorations, I am also thinking about easy places to add a little bit of extra, silhouette, a little bit of extra dynamic shape design. For example, her gauntlets, it's easy to make just a form-fitting plate that has some thin spikes on it, but I want to chunk those spikes up because that makes it easier to see it on screen. Even if she's moving around a lot, you'll at least get to see this kind of dramatic metal shape on her arm, which allows you to potentially track her arm during an animation. If I'm going to add details like that in, I want to make sure that they're impactful, that they make a difference for her character. Small things like rivets, buttons, belt buckles that don't really enhance the silhouette, I'll usually either remove or really reduce in kind of notoriety in her general real estate of her design, because it helps us organize visual importance on a character. I'm just gonna be doing that across all of her different parts, pulling out edges, making them sharper, more dramatic. I always talk about fighting characters that they're larger than life, and everything on them is just this it's double the size, they have double the muscle mass, they have double the personality. It's this kind of leaping off the page, leaping out of the screen. kind of translation of a character. But I try different poses so that you can see a costume in motion, right? Body type is also something that we think about in this stage. I try a bunch of different body types just like I try a bunch of different poses, which I think is counter to what a lot of concept artists are taught to do. I do it because it's fun and I enjoy it. It is not conducive to easy viewing, but I have fun. So that's all that's important, I guess, to me. But I try different poses so that you can see a costume in motion, right? The main reason why I do it is because the classic concept art pose always has them facing 3/4 and is always in a very static, stiff kind of position so that you can see all the details clearly. But to me, what that does is rob a character of any kind of personality or individuality, and also certain clothes might not fit all personality types. So for Katarina, I might try one that feels a little bit more hunched, a little bit more aggressive. I might try one that feels a little bit more solemn, a little bit more depressed in comparison to each other, and I wouldn't want to dress that character the same. Maybe it's an excuse. I think that the pose and the costume help each other tell a stronger story. Body type is also a way to tell that story as well. But in the context of everyone else in 2XKO who has also become slightly beefier, they all gotten into protein, she will feel appropriately thinner than the rest of them. But I can't resist adding a little bit more muscle than I think people expect. I like to keep as much of the character in flux while also still bringing in elements that I feel will add that back in. So if I do change the costume, I might keep the hair the same. When you get other people's interpretations or like perspectives on a character, you get a sense for like what the consensus is for what makes a character them. For Katarina, it could be her red hair for some people. It could be something very visual, right? I'm obviously going to keep the scar on her eye, although some people might not be excited about what I do with the scar on her eye. The red hair will probably stay red. I'm not going to do anything about that, although I do want to try cutting it short. And the costuming, because to me, I think the costume of Katarina does not define who she is. It is an accessory to this holistic understanding of who she is. The very fact that we as humans often will choose different clothing every day, but that does not necessarily deviate from our identity, because we reasonably try to dress within the bounds of comfort and the bounds of what we expect for ourselves. Outside of certain circumstances, you can change your clothes and people will still recognize that it's you, either by your mannerism, by the way that you speak. Obviously your face probably stays the same. That being said, I'm a loose cannon as far as this is concerned. So I'm going to change absolutely everything and keep nothing precious. And then at the very end, we're going to decide what's definitely Katarina, what's definitely not, because we're having fun. So I'm going to do that. If that affects how you see this character, then I think that speaks a lot to what you value in a character, right? And if you're an aspiring character designer, it's a fantastic thing to know about yourself. The way that you yourself interpret how designs can be translated, how they can change and evolve, but then also what must stay the same. Those are personal quirks and personal philosophies that each character designer has. So for me, I might have a much more dramatic taste for change than someone else who might look at these characters and say, I have other solutions for how we can keep that consistent. But unfortunately, you're stuck with me. So we're gonna do this my way, which is essentially everything is up for grabs and on the table until proven otherwise. And now here's a problem. I don't know how to flip this, so I'm just gonna cheat. I don't know what it is. Bad brain. I have bad brain. I can't flip things. I can't copy things. I can't make things symmetrical. I can't tell left from right, which is not the kind of person I thought I was gonna grow up to be, but turns out I can't. So there's certain things like, oh, can I redraw this sword again? Turns out I can't. So I'm just gonna cheat. Which is glorious and amazing and not a problem whatsoever. The point of this kind of earlier phase of exploration in concept is to test all of the different permutations and just like put them out on paper. We try to the best of our ability to kind of put all of the different ideas out there based on earlier direction from either design or narrative. Since I'm doing this by myself and I get to make all the decisions. I am just trying out a bunch of different ways to essentially depict this like darker idea of Katarina. I started with what is essentially her base costume with very little, if any, changes. And now I'm going to try to start changing up small aspects or large aspects of her design. So slightly more disheveled, a little bit more dystopian feel if we wanted to maybe interpret a darker version of Katarina as someone who has maybe lost a sense of self in her pursuit of perfection, and maybe she sort of become this, like, if an assassin could get worse, you know, maybe she's become someone that even that side of the law does not want to get involved with because she is so meticulous, so obsessive. Maybe she has less metal pieces, she has less elements to her costume that are custom crafted to fit her and the way that she moves. You know, all those little details contribute to this kind of grander idea of who this version of this character is, what they've endured, what they've surpassed, and kind of seen the other side of. I think League of Legends characters try to ride the line of still being very aspirational and still being very heroic in a certain way, although clearly there are some characters that are not heroes. They're most definitely villains. And Katarina is neither hero nor, I guess, full villain. There are ways that you can make her story feel a little bit less lethal and a little bit less harsh. But the character that I want to make today, I want to see how dark Katarina could go. And so how do we change her costume to do that? Part of designing for 2XKO... Oh, hello. Part of designing for 2XKO is also considering the different material reads of a design. It's trying to pull together that heritage of 2D fighting games. This is a version of Katarina that doesn't have the leathers. She has more of this, like, maybe she has a little bit more of a cotton, scrounged together look, and it's not polished or even scrapped leather. Maybe she has less metal pieces. She has less elements to her costume that are custom crafted to fit her and the way that she moves. You know, all those little details contribute to this kind of grander idea of who this version of this character is, what they've endured, what they've surpassed, and kind of seen the other side of. I've done a couple of pretty tight-fitting versions, so I want to try other alternative ideas for where you could take a character just by changing one thing or changing an ensemble piece, like the shirt or the pants. Classically, we've been making the pants really big because that's in right now. It doesn't fit for every character, but it's worth trying. Always worth trying all these ideas. Now I have to pick. To make a decision. I always get the opportunity to offload the decision making to other people. It's just easier because other people will be like, oh, well, this doesn't feel like them, or this feels cooler, or whatever. And I'm like, great, thank you. There's almost this extra pressure of like, now account for like 20 other people's potential opinions to make the one that feels the most reasonable. Because I'm always going to pick the one that definitely doesn't work for anyone. I think we'll keep it simple. I will mix two of them together and call that the iteration. I think I'm going to mix A and B together and just try to find something in between. If we call this one A, this one B, this one C. And then we'll go on from there. The original pass that I did was kind of just trying to shoot in as many different directions as possible. It includes looking at different actual ensemble pieces, right? So like, what is she actually wearing? Is she wearing a crop jacket that's tight leather, or is she wearing something a little bit looser that has a little bit more flair? Obviously we have her original design that I did a rendition of just to put that on the table. And then a variation of a bunch of different elements, right? What kind of hairstyle does she have, the kind of makeup that she has, and, you know, the way that she kind of, it like evokes a certain emotion or a certain kind of atmosphere. Each of these try to be somewhat unique in their own way. I'm not necessarily trying to reinvent the wheel, but more so find ways to switch up our perception of her so that if there is one that feels particularly interesting, we can actually pursue it. Trying to hone in more on that kind of darker potential version of her. I decided to go with this sort of rightmost option just because additional spikes placed in an area that had a little bit more presence, like her shoulders, reminiscent of Ardaria's design in 2XKO, but it kind of makes her feel a little bit more in line with this very sharp and jagged personality. Once we leave exploration, which usually takes a few weeks to do, and I will have done probably about 5 times the amount of art that I've done today, then we will hone in on something that feels like it has potential. Once we find maybe a couple of designs that do that, or one design that feels the strongest, we'll go into what we call iteration. So this is a really pared down version of iteration where we essentially take the main idea and just try to extrapolate other potential directions from there, whether or not those are small details, whether or not those are big changes as well. It really is all in service of just testing the waters for what is possible and what feels right. And then the final one was sort of just like a last bid to see, like, could I put her in almost a sort of vampire hunter-esque thing, make her feel a little bit more of like the villain in the dark sort of a vibe, going full mask, even though Katarina doesn't seem to be shy about hiding her face in any way, just to see if the changes that we make to the characterization of her would change that part of her character as well. And I think at the end, I still really like a of these versions, but I do want to do something that kind of mixes the two of them for something that feels just like this is Katarina in a pursuit of madness into some form of emotional descent, without completely stripping away any of her inherent, charisma, any of her inherent poise, right? Ultimately, Katarina is still meant to feel heroic, still meant to feel aspirational. But I think we can make small edits here, combine the two, and just find something that feels a little bit of both. Concept art doesn't typically, and especially on 2XKO, we don't typically do final full pieces for our concepts. It is good enough for a character artist to take and keep moving, which makes me happy because finishing art is difficult and takes a lot of time, and it doesn't add a lot of value for concept specifically. So I'm going to try to take it to as close of a finish as we need it to be for a modeler to take, and get a better idea of what she might look like in 2XKO. The long hair is sort of problematic only because the pursuit of trying to keep limbs and extremities separate means that anything that sits too close to kind of like where the joint is for something, for a different element or piece, could interfere with that from a technical standpoint. So long hair that sits right against the nape and there's a lot of mass there can be kind of problematic. That's why, Ari has this, condensed braid, which can move as one unit and doesn't require a ton of extra individual parts. That's why when we do collars, we try to keep it away from the neck so that when there's any kind of dramatic animation that requires some head movement, you're not going to risk doing something that's a little tricky or a little delicate when it comes to how that part of the body interacts with the costuming or any other feature. But since I am not handing this off to someone, we're gonna do what we sort of want. I will probably make the hair sit somewhat in a bit of a kind of a ponytail that sits a little bit away from the neck. I think for a character like our current Power Hour version of Katarina, it works to kind of make her feel a little unfriendly. It works to kind of add a very obvious visual hook to describe this version's temperament and maybe friendliness. But on top of that, it also adds a very easy way to create kind of a dramatic silhouette up by the shoulders, because a lot of Noxus metals are silver, so it's going to be this really nice bright focal point right by what could be a darker jacket or her darker hair, and while we don't want to completely overwhelm that area with metal and silver. It's a nice opportunity to introduce a different tone. It's a nice excuse to create some pretty interesting.
3, 2, 1, hit it. What up, guys? It's Count Wick, and I've been playing a lot of Viper, Crimson Viper, in Street Fighter 6. The new DLC character is dropped. Been out for a week or two, about for a few weeks, and this is my favorite Street Fighter 6 Street Fighter character of all time. And she's out, and I'm really loving the character. And there's a lot about her. They've given her a lot of good stuff. Gave her a lot of things to work with, but there are some little things that people have missed. We're here to talk about Viper, what she's missing, what they forgot or decided not to put in the game. We're going to take a deep look at that, because a lot of people may not have seen it, and it's pretty crucial. But all in all, let's talk about C Viper. Three, two, one, hit it. Okay, here we go with C Viper. Let's talk about her range. Her range is not bad, but her normals are really good. She's got decent range on her lows, which are lows are not to be slept on. Not to be slept on. This medium punch, little bit, but when it gets in, man, and +1 on block, you can do this and go in for the medium, the low punch and get a counter hit, which is really special. This crouching medium punch, really dang special. This, the Brett, and this is a fantastic kick, fantastic range. Also, we can't sleep on this button. We cannot sleep on this button. The fierce punch, it's got really good range as well. Look at how far that you have to be just to hit with it, like about right there. They're about the same range. Yep, they're about the same range. Really good moves, special cancelable. But we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what they were missing with Viper. Let's get into this. 3, 2, 1, hit it. Okay, guys, we're here. We're going to take a look at what is missing with Viper, which may have been intentionally left out. Here, to explore this, we got to go back to Ultra Street Fighter 4 Crimson Viper to show you two things that are kind of important that are missing with C Viper in Street Fighter 6. Let's take a look. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hit it. All right, here we go. As you can see, Ryu's throwing fireballs here. Watch. Shoot, I gotta remember. There, you see it? I got hit there. Got hit again. You gotta time it just right. Dang. All right, stop here. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hit it. Okay. To take a look at what's missing with C Viper, we got to go back to Ultra Street Fighter 4 and take a look at the two major things that are very important that she is missing in her arsenal with the new C Viper in Street Fighter 6. Let's take a look. Here I have Ryu throwing fireballs, as you can see. Let's pay attention here. You see that? So I got hit. Again, there it is. And we'll try to do it one more time so you can see. She can negate fireballs. She can negate them. Right there. You see that? Even with the instant air burn kick, and it snuffed out the fireball and hit him. Right there again. One of the key things, negate fireball. This is what she had in Street Fighter 6. As I'm trying, right there. Fireball negated. That's I'm messing up a little bit because I'm so used to, they changed the motion. But it's right there. It'll even knock him clean out of it. It'll even knock him clean out of the fireball and hit him because it's negating the fireball. Her burn kicks can negate fireball. Let's take a look at another thing that's very crucial that she does not have in Street Fighter 6. Three, two, one, hit it. Okay. This is another thing that's missing. Let's take a look at it. We're using Ultra Street Fighter 4 to take a look at this. See it? Oh, that's it. Right there. I had it set wrong. We'll try one time. Right there. Crouching medium kick. And there that one goes. Now we take a look at Viper in Street Fighter 6. Let's see what happens. 3, 2, 1, hit it. What up, guys? This is Count Wick, and I've been playing a lot of Viper, Crimson Viper, in Street Fighter 6. The new DLC character is dropped. Been out for a week or two, about for a few weeks, and this is my favorite Street Fighter 6 Street Fighter character of all time. That didn't work. And she's out, and I'm really loving the character, and there's a lot about her. They've given her a lot of good stuff, gave her a lot of things to work with, but there are some little things that people have missed. We're here to talk about Viper, what she's missing, what they forgot or decided not to put in the game. We're going to take a deep look at the two major all right. Yeah, my volume went out. All right, that's
Interesting shoulder shapes, which allow us to then maybe even consider simplifying her arms so that that upper shoulder portion is more interesting and then her hands can be more interesting. The, desire to add too much detail to the kind of length of the arm, we save that for precious real estate elsewhere. That's kind of the push and pull relationship of designing a costume for a character, is recognizing what about them feels like a more important focal point than other places, and kind of adjusting all of the surrounding elements to make that feel appropriately eye-catching. I think the toughest question I've had to ask myself, and a question that I think all creatives should at some point ask themselves, is whether or not you're actually curious about the world around you. I realized early on when I was getting into character design that I really wasn't a very curious person, much less a curious artist, and it made the work that I did very insular. Dare I say, aesthetically incestuous, right? It's derivatives of derivatives, and it's so easy to do that when you know what you love, you know what you respond to, you just want to make the stuff that you love and want to see out in the world. But the reality is that as designers, we are the arbiters of not just our taste, but everyone's taste. Everyone from leadership to, our coworkers on our team, to the audience, to the players. And when we are incurious about the kind of content that's out there, the kind of art that's out there, how we can expand our craft, not just through being better artists, but also just being better people, I think when we don't do that, we essentially elect to kind of just alleviate that responsibility from ourselves. I realized how much more there was to engage with, how much more there was to design in general. It evolved into really analyzing and questioning myself about, was I actually interested in costume design, or was I interested in costume design when it confirmed my own taste? And that lack of curiosity was what led to me realizing that none of my designs felt interesting enough. None of them felt like I loved them enough to give them a fighting chance. And so if there's anything I would love for all artists to do, is to ask yourself whether or not you are curious about the world around you, curious about the other artists that are living now or living before, and all the different kinds of ways design can manifest itself in other disciplines. Because I think once you really open your eyes to that, this world of character design can be so much more exciting than it already is. This aspect and element of art can have, sort of this open blue sky of opportunity. It's hard to recognize that you're missing out on that when you willingly put yourself in a box because it feels safe. So challenge your ideas, challenge your aesthetics, challenge your tastes. When you find things that you don't like or kind of are repulsed by, it's a perfect opportunity to understand why. to expand your horizons, to encompass things that you love and you don't. Being curious, I think, is the mark of a real, true designer, a real, true artist. Because it's only once you do that that you fully understand what is possible and what has not yet been done, and can therefore do something meaningful about that. The nice thing about Clip Studio is setting up a layer which you can reference, so tools will then use that layer to calculate what it wants to do versus whatever you have on the layer currently on. And in kind of concert with this tool, I can be absolved of my crimes for not ever having clean, perfectly closed line art, and I can still quickly color my work. There's nothing I hate more than coloring a concept. However, it is so helpful when selling an idea that I usually force myself to do it. Thankfully, Clip makes it much less painless, or it's much more painless to do it in Clip Studio than really any other program. So this is really when the concept will feel finished for a lot of people, because once you see it with color, you see it with values, you start to understand like how certain things get pushed back into the frame, back into space, because you start to appreciate all of the hard lifting that color and value are doing for you subconsciously. It really is kind of this collaborative effort, even between all of the different elements of the concept, to make what feels like a solid final design. It's always very cool when someone's wearing red gloves, and originally my thought was, oh, she'll have the red gloves so it's super bright against both her skin and then the swords. The issue is that she has a lot of red hair, which will probably get in the way or be behind her hands. And now you have this issue of, you could either make the hair darker and just hope that a lighter red stands out against a darker red, or make the decision to change one or the other. There are ways to work around stuff like that, but that's why it's always good to see things in concert with each other, to have a pose where things are sort of overlapping, because it's really in the overlap of limbs that you get the most amount of risk. That's where the most amount of noise will appear, because you're contending with a character who's constantly moving and shifting around, and if too much of their color palette is easily overlappable with itself, then the character is nigh impossible to see when in motion, much less, flat on this kind of concepting page. Try to keep that in mind, what issues visually might pop up if we make certain decisions. What I'll probably have to do is I can either do a two-toned glove, where it's dark on one side, light on the other, or be cool with neither. Which I could also be behind if color blocking works out, but if I do a darker color, then you have her pants to figure out. Maybe I make the pants a slightly different color. Maybe I make them kind of like a very dull camo green instead, just to see if maybe that feels distinct enough to kind of give us some leeway with the gloves. Which is not a bad look, but red and green is hard to sell because it immediately looks like Christmas. But, again, all of this in service of giving us some leeway with this very particular part of her design. Because red gloves are nice. It'd be really cool to do them. They're always cool when you see them in a piece of media, but it might not be the perfect time for a decision like that. Something that was impressed upon me when I was a student was very much this feeling of design is such a separate thing from a lot of other forms of art. And I don't think I would have actually been very good at concept art if I hadn't been forced to reckon with the fact that, the act of designing something and the act of designing a character is not the same as drawing, a beautiful picture of some nice looking character. It's very fun to design characters for yourself and in your free time. But it really wasn't until I had, design teachers in my life kind of really sit me down and say, it's good that you're good at art to some extent, but it's not good enough for what design demands of you. It just reformatted my brain for what I should actually be taking very seriously. I think, in a way, the best advice was, it wasn't even like a phrase or words, but a sentiment that you can't assume that there's going to be kind of like an ease into the transition of between different skills, like that there's something very particular and special about every niche, every industry, every type of project that you work on. So I, moving forward, never assumed that I could understand how to design for both a MOBA and a fighting game and an MMO and like a beat 'em up or something like that. I couldn't assume to know how to design for all those things, and that I had to be curious about what demands they had based on their genre, based on the kind of gameplay that they wanted a player to engage with, and that was integral to the process of designing a character. Unless someone had told me that, I don't think I would have naturally understood that there's so much nuance to each particular niche, each particular kind of project, and how different design is as like just as a way of thinking, as a way of seeing the world. In a way, it was heartbreaking, I think, because it meant that a lot of the ways that I had thought about art, a lot of the ways that I enjoyed art, were not suited for this thing that I wanted to do. But then the more I thought about it, the more I realized it was actually really exciting to know that there's no end to the problems you have to solve. Doing this job, working in this industry, that to be on a project in which you are confronted with problems you've never had to solve before is actually quite exciting. It's that sentiment of you aren't ever fully prepared, that you have to always be curious, because being confident about your abilities purely due to lack of challenge or lack of or kind of an overwhelming amount of ignorance towards this field, something which becomes extremely obvious very quickly when you start to have conversations with other people actively working in game development, or very familiar with a type of project or a type of game, and you realize like all their priorities are different, all of their sentiment and their focus is all over the place. And just because you like designing characters doesn't necessarily mean you know how to design the best character that they need or they want. Which, again, devastating, and then it eventually became really exciting to know that character design isn't just how do you make a cool looking character, but rather, how do you come up with the best solution given very particular sets of parameters. And that's design. That's what it actually is. Which is great because it's essentially this ongoing complex puzzle where it never ends and there's never the perfect logical answer for you to get to the same, set of patterns or set of, solutions, because it's so specific and it's so unique that I might never fully understand the scope of how characters are designed because there's just so many different projects to design for. And in general, I think that just opened my mind to just being excited to learn about how different games and different projects are made. I have a newfound appreciation for people who can context switch, who can bring a sense of familiarity to like all of their different projects because they just have that flexibility. It's something I, sort of endeavored to try to do every time is exercise a level of flexibility that allows me to solve a wider variety of problems. And I think if that's stuff that you're interested in, like, character design is a really fun way to do it, I think there's a lot of different roles that you could look into that would give you a similar experience, but if you're an artist and you like solving problems, there is no end to all the problems that you'll have working in in games, but at the same time, it's also really, really cool to get to kind of come together with a whole group of people and taking all their expertise to inform something that, to some people should be intuitive. Just make the cool character that everyone's going to want to, buy and pay for, but it's more than that, and it's great that it's more than that, because then that means there's sort of an endless amount of things to learn and to keep improving on. I think that sentiment, that curse of a never-ending journey that my teacher sort of gave me was enlightening, because it became obvious that it wasn't enough to be a good artist, which is great. The ceiling is even higher than it was before. So if you have that sense of curiosity, it's getting to see a whole new sky open up in front of you, which is at least how I interpreted it, because it's easy to be overwhelmed by that notion, but I think once you come to terms with how you want to enjoy the work that you make and how you want to interact with it, I personally found it to be very exciting that there are different puzzles that can be found in all these different places, but you can find them all within working in games. I consider myself very fortunate to have been able to find a place working in games, because there's no end to the all the fun puzzles that I get to work on. Typically, concepts live and die off of being useful, so typically we don't get to finish a lot of our stuff in any way. But for the sake of, not really having too much extra fancy stuff to show for the concept process in this sort of very truncated form, we would all just add some vague, spooky shapes just to tie it all together. Okay, yeah, I think we're done. Yay! So to recap today, we went in with Katarina. We did some research on who she is in League proper, while also doing a little bit of exploratory research and reference to build what could possibly be a version of Katarina visually. We then went into a bit of an ideation phase exploration, focusing on what changes can we make to Katarina to really push this new idea for her, this darker version of her story. From there, we selected a couple, figured out which one felt the strongest out of the group, and then went into kind of an iteration phase of refining some details, changing some up, just seeing what they added or detracted from that main idea. At the very end, we decided on a design and then brought that to essentially a form of finish that I would typically do for a concept on 2XKO. Ever since Katarina was on the project a very long time ago, I'd always wanted to sort of work on her, so actually getting to do it today was very fun. I think if I had more time, I would have loved to really test the waters for her, but at the same time, I also, don't really have too many issues with her original main design. I think the color blocking is great. I think setup of it is pretty standard and very easy to understand, and so going just a little bit further than that, I think was also, something I would have wanted to do in the real case. I think it'd be fun to make her even darker. I think it'd be fun to make her almost wraith-like in almost just like a atmospheric sense. Not very literally, but there's so much you could do with an assassin character that I would never get tired of working on them. So while I am very happy with what I was able to do today, obviously, hopefully one day we will be able to work on a, actual Katarina and really push it. But for now, for this very special episode of this Power Hour, I'm very happy that I got to at least think about Katarina, really focus in on her, and, propose a design that I think could really work in our game. With that, we're concluding today's episode of the Super Art Power Hour. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you had a good time. I hope the stuff that we did today was exciting. I think character design in general is just such an amazing space to be in. So hopefully it got you excited to do some character designs of your own. And tune in next time for much more cool art from the Super Art Power Hour team. And with that, happy Halloween!
Wearing down. Wearing down. I got a lot to do to get Viper down. Still struggling a bit. Still struggling a bit. Still struggling a bit. Yeah, I gotta get a little bit of this stuff now. Still messing up execution here and there. So, there's some things she needs a little buffs. There needs to be more reward for the execution. For sure. For sure, there needs to be a little bit more reward for the extra execution. But until next time, we're going to end the stream there. Y'all, thanks for watching and stuff. Y'all watched, and until next time, see ya on the flip side. Thanks for watching. Peace out.